1998, you are hired by the WWF full-time. You're going to come in as Gangrel. How does it happen? How are you hired?
Well, all right, it's a little bit of a longer story. So I got to go all the way back to, like, and I've had tons of tryouts, right? So I've had a tryout as a vampire, and that was in 92 or early 93. 92, I think. I went there and tried out as a vampire. It was a giant fiasco. I actually got pinned in a match I was supposed to go over, like, it fast counted me. But although I did kick out, if Mike McGurk was here, she'd tell you I kicked out. But it was kind of a rib on me, like, we'll give you a tryout as a vampire, and then, well, we'll let you go over, and then they try to count you fast in a pin, right? It was just typical stuff like that. It was just a day at the office with them, so, and I was like, oh, well, I really blew that, you know. I think I might have even went into a stairwell by myself and cried. I'm like, oh, whatever, and then I came out like everything's fine. Then Jerry Lawler walked up to me and he says, I like the vampire thing. You want to come to Memphis? And that's when I went down to Memphis, and that's when I ended up getting the Rookie of the Year thing and all that stuff. So, like, I've seen that early years. So, and then I even went back, even though I was going to Japan and stuff, I'd still go back and do the Black Phantom. That's when the body evolved. I started getting in better shape, doing things, and I was wearing a mask. So we'll go up to 97 or 98 or whatever it is, the end or the beginning, whichever one. I was out in California, and this is when Taka Michinoku just won the light heavyweight belt. I think did he beat, I don't know who he beat, Scotty, or somebody. He just won the light heavyweight.
Brian Christopher. Yeah.
He beat Brian Christopher, right? So Brian Christopher was supposed to wrestle him in Anaheim that day. And this was like spring or something, and they're like, Brian didn't make it, his plane got iced in. I went, okay, you know. Knowing Brian, he was up to something. I don't know what it was, but I had just came in from, I went on a trip of Luna, because they were doing the West Coast, California and stuff, so literally I just drove up from Tijuana. Everybody knows where Tijuana is, right? Like, nothing good happens in Tijuana, so. Yeah. Granted to say, I was not sober when I got there, like, and I wasn't ready to wrestle, and then it was a house show, and Vince was there, and they go, hey, you got gear? And nobody had seen me since I got in really good shape. I actually did have abs. And it didn't take me long to get dressed because I just wore trunks and boots at that time. I was in like the best shape of my life at that period. And they said, you got gear? And I go, yeah, it's in the car. They go, we'll go get it. Literally, I was putting a boot on and signing a waiver to do the house show, you know, go to the ring. And I had Taka. Taka goes, oh, Davidson, black hearts, yeah. And, you know, so he knew all the black heart stuff in Japan and everything, you know, being he's from Japan. And he was up on all this wrestling. And I said, oh, I'm going to do this move. It's kind of like a suplex, but I won't hook your arm, but you just take a face bump like a DDT. Okay, David, okay. He was like super cool. He was super light, so when you were strong, he was easy to lift, and so it looked even more vicious. So I was in there doing the match. It was just, you know, mostly talking, and I hit him with that. Like, first of all, the place was like this. This is a full arena, and I walk out there like, who's this jobber? Like, where's Brian Christopher? You know, they're expecting Brian Christopher and Taka, you know, and I come out there. So it was quiet, and a lot of the matches like that, and it started getting some reactions, you know, through the work, you would get some reactions, but they were still like, where's Brian? You know, they came to see Brian, you know, you pay to come see. It's like me being here, and they send, I don't know, Kenny out or something, I don't know.
Or Nails.
I don't know. They were upset, like, or quiet about it, or didn't know what to do, and so that's a very awkward thing. And plus, I was probably half in the bag, so like oh, did they know I've been drinking? But I hit that DDT that first time, and Vince didn't see it, but he was walking by, and somebody said, when I hit it, the whole place went whoa, and they popped. They like that quietness went to like the biggest like roar, and they said, Vince looked over and said, who's in the ring? And it goes, Taka's with David, Luna's, and he goes, oh, send him to the camp. He was just like that. He goes, send him to the camp. So a month later or something, I was in the WWE dojo with Dory Funk, and so I trained in there. It was like 3 weeks, I think, or 2 weeks. I trained, and every day they would ask me, what do you think of this Andrew guy, Test, you know? Or what do you think of this Prince Albert they were asking me about? So all these guys that had good careers after me, they're asking me about Crash Holly, and I'd be like, oh, they're great. They would ask me about all these guys. They'd never ask me about myself. I'm like, damn. So I'm like, but I would say, yeah. They say, hey, can you come in and give Eric Watts a tryout on your? It was supposed to be lunchtime. Do it privately. I did. Dan Severn, I did. I was like, wow, this has got to be good. And then, you know, they talked to a lot of these guys before they ever left. They knew they were going to get a job. Nothing to me. It was like, was like, damn, like, I don't know. But I was going to All Japan, so I had an All Japan tour booked. So I went home. I wasn't even home a couple days, and I was out to All Japan. So I went to All Japan. I was supposed to be, just work like a second or third match. There was no vampire, just boots and trunks. David Heath, I think they called it. That was it, just my name. Which was, I found it so much easier, but it's not as cool, but like, you don't have to carry all this gear yet. So like, but that's my problem. But, so I work, and then somebody, I go to start the All Japan tour, somebody missed their flight, ironic. The same way I got the thing, somebody's flight was late, and they moved me into the semi-main. And then I pretty much stayed the semi-main the rest of that tour. And halfway through the tour, Johnny Ace came to me and said, they started tagging me Bobby Duncan Jr., another guy that's not with us anymore, Bobby Duncan Jr., and they said, Vince likes you, they want to offer you a year contract, they want to put the all Asian straps on you and Bobby, but, I go, but, like, you're not going to ask me to stay in the dojo, are you? Like, or something, because they would do stuff like that. They go, no, WWE is called, and said they have a contract for you too. Little did we know that Johnny Ace was playing both sides at that time. That's when Johnny was in All Japan, and then he jumped and he came into WWE around the Brawl for All times and stuff. And it was Steve Williams' last tour there, and he came in for the Brawl for All. But they said, you got to answer now, though. We need to know before you go home if you're going to stay here or go there. And Johnny was like, I would go. He was like pushing me towards WWE, and then I'd call Luna, and she goes, oh, you got to go. Or it's called WWF at the time. You need to go there, we're there. And I just really wanted to stay in Japan because the cool thing about Japan is you come out there, if you just work with your heart on your sleeve, you just just do the best you can, whether you're good or bad. If you just give it 100%, they respect you so much. And you just feel a sense of pride. You get on the tour bus, you pop a beer, and you go to the next town. That's it, Like, it's a no-brainer, just go work hard and be yourself. There's no politics and at that time and all this worried about somebody this or that, or none of the craziness was there. And I seen all the craziness with Luna throughout the past when she was in and out of there. So I was wanting to go that way. She talked me into signing with WWF. So then I get home, actually, and there is no contract, so I don't think there ever was one. But they said, yeah. Then they tried to give me a developmental, and I go, no. But I already told Bob no, so I was getting a little worried. And then they send an actual contract, and then I sign it, and then they go, oh, we're not going to use you for like a year or something. You're just going to go home. I go, what? And now, I'm in my best shape that I've ever been in. Of course, I wanted to wrestle, and I felt like that was the time. I wanted to seize the moment. And they said that. I went home. And I don't know if it was an attitude check or whatever it was. I went home. I was home a week. And then they called on a Friday night and said, hey, can you still do the vampire thing? I go, well, I've already gotten rid of the fangs. I said, yeah, I said yes, thinking I'd have a few weeks to go prepare for it. They said, okay, we're going to fly you out tomorrow for a Sunday show. I'm like, what? Tomorrow? So I was like, what do I do? And so I ran out. I think I told you earlier, I ran right to Hot Topics. Back then, it wasn't so mainstream, so that's where I got those purple, blue suede pants and got the white poet shirt. But I don't want to be a pirate sign, like the puffy shirt. And right next to there was a shoe store called Journey, so I walked in there, and I'm still wearing them. The New Rocks, I'm still wearing those, the same ones I debuted in. I still wear them. So I didn't have time to change the sole on them then for the very first time, and I worked Scotty Too Hottie, which is a great guy. But then eventually I changed the sole. But yeah, I just went to the mall, bought stuff, got on a plane. They came up with that whole entrance in that same amount of time. That entrance with the elevator, all that was the same amount of time, and the music was in that same amount of time. Yeah, all that, everything was such a weird, perfect storm, evolved in a day and a half, 2 days. It's so crazy, like that. It was so. I thought it was perfect. The music, the elevator with the flames, and it was just. I don't know. I don't want to say it was meant to be, but it was definitely something special for sure.
So, what was your reaction when you get to TV and they go, right, here's this entrance we're going to have you do, and you hear the music for the first time?
Well, yeah. I was like, is this really happening? Because you think like all these years they didn't want nothing to do with the vampire thing, and Vince McMahon himself told me he wouldn't use the vampire character. But I think if you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there was a period of time there, and this is the period, where Vince Russo had creative control for 30 days. Do you remember anything like that? And he's the one that pushed it through because, like, after my debut, I could tell you about why. Like, he got cussed out for me. So it was a little overwhelmed. They said, we're going to do a dry rehearsal, which is you could do it without the crowd, just no TV. And so we did it once, and they said, hey, the elevator shimmers. And I go, oh, wow, this is like super, super cool. But the arena was lit. It wasn't dark, and it wasn't as smoky and everything. So I'm like, oh, this is cool. But then I heard the music, and I was like, oh. First I thought, is this Possum Kingdoms by the Toadies? And because I gave them, they asked me about music, and I said, oh, I like the song Possum Kingdom. It's about vampires and stuff. And but I'm the only one who hears it, and everybody thinks I'm completely insane. But if you guys go and listen to Possum Kingdom, put the headphones on, listen from the very beginning through. Just tell me if I'm crazy later. You can send me a message on my social media or something. Because I hear it, and I think they took it and they just slowed stuff down, sped stuff up, and switched it around. But it's still a brilliant mix that Jim Johnson came up with. It's just amazing. And so we did that, came up, that was cool, and then now nerves are kicking, and you got a debut, and like, everybody seen the very first one I did? Did you see the one with Scotty Tuati? And I came out with the black leather jacket. Can you tell me what the hell I was doing with the blood? I think I was making love to the blood. I was like, oh, like, such a weirdo I am, like, the whole world knows I'm a weirdo, like, so I had to tone that down, and they got rid of the leather jacket, and by the second time I came out, it was just a white puffy shirt, so I'm thinking about how to do all that. I'm trying to think about the match. I don't want to screw it up. It's just nerves, overwhelming. You go from, like, telling you they're not going to use you for a year, and not even being able to get a job in that company to like, you got the job, they tell you they're not going to use you, but then in a week later, they tell you they'll use you in 2 days, and with something that you pushed that whole time that they didn't want nothing to do with. So you got you're questioning a lot of things, and a lot of things are going through your mind. And so it's time to go and go out. In the elevator, you had to get down like this, like crunch down, and you had to slowly rise up, and then the elevator would catch up and bring you up, right? So you had to time that out. So they told me the elevator has a shimmy in it, like when I did the dry run. They said, wait till it shifts, and then it'll come up and lock. So I said, okay. Well, all that's going on. I'm up. I see the fire up here, the smoke, and all the lights. It's dark. I'm like, oh. And I thought I felt that shift, that shimmy. So I go to walk. Good thing it was taped. I go to walk out the elevator, turn to walk through the fire, and that'd be my foot between the stage and the elevator, like, squashed. It was just there, smashed, and I had those boots on, so they were really thick, and everything. So they probably kept me from losing my toes. So I'm standing in the fire going, hey, guys, I'm on fire. Like, I can't get out of the fire. I'm standing there going, what a debut. I just killed myself in the first day. Like, so I'm standing there, and then they back it off, and I pull my foot out, and then I go down the ramp, and then that's where that grizzled-ass walk came from. That, ooh, like, I could barely walk on that foot. Honestly, that's where that walk came from, like that. Boom. I mean, I was feeling the beat and everything, but that rough chop was because my toes were black and blue for like 5 months. Like, it was horrible. I didn't go to the doctor to get it looked at. I didn't even tell him. I didn't even want to put it over and get fired. Like, oh, you got hurt, So, so down the ramp I went and did the blood thing, which I was all worried about, and that came across super weird. But it was cool. I still look at it and go, it was cool. I knew what I was trying to do, but if somebody that didn't know wrestling was looking at it, they'd be going like, well, this once was a porn theater. There's definitely something going on very taboo there, so.
You did say in an interview that when you were coming up through the elevator thing that, like, you're supposed to look menacing, but you just couldn't help but smile.
Yeah, they would go, hey, you're supposed to be scary and this evil vampire, and I go, I am. like, yeah, well, you're not doing it very well. Like, they say, can you not smile? And I say, yeah, I cannot smile, right? So I would do the thing. I'd get up. Then the music's kicking. You hear it good. And your flames are going, and you're starting to sway to the music. And I held it. I think the longest I ever held it, I got halfway down the ramp, and I was just like, like, I couldn't, man. I was just so damn happy I was doing like, and they tried, and they finally just said, all right, you're a happy vampire that likes pain, I was like, works for me. I'm just enjoying the moment. Everything's so cool. I just couldn't hold it back, how I really felt. Just like a kid on Christmas,
And I never knew that how there were legal ramifications to the name Gangrel that they chose for you. So what happened with the name?
Right, so in the midst of them to do the vampire thing, they pulled all this research that I sent them over a period of time. They had different things, and one was White Wolves. It's like a board game where vampires and whatnot, and Gangrel would be a clan. So it was in with the research amongst a lot of other different vampire things and the Lost Boys and things, because I just kept trying to convince him, like, vampires they're cool. They can lose every night as long as they look cool. Like vampires get their ass kicked all the time, but they just keep coming. I said you could do this, and they weren't getting it. They didn't get the whole vampire thing, and I gave them stuff and said there's a whole culture of this. And I would ask them stuff like, you see vampire movies. The vampire movies are always popular. They'll come out with one every, I said they're always going to be around. At least that's what I believed. And they didn't get it, but then they had all that research and they pulled it out, I guess, like Vince Russo or somebody. And when they were going over it, when they decided to do it, from my understanding, right, Vince McMahon came by and said, well, he needs a name. And he saw Gangrel. He says, that'll work. I like that one. Apparently, this was a Friday night or early Saturday morning AMs or something. Nobody ran it through legal. Or they gave it to legal and legal didn't run it. Because I heard rumors he fired the whole legal department on one floor over it. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I heard. Because that aired on a Sunday or Monday, whenever it aired. The next day, they had a lawsuit against them, lawyers and all that for tons. That's why they ended up advertising for, if you looked at all the magazines back then, I've seen a couple today, if you look in there, it probably has The Masquerade, me coming up through the fire, advertising The Masquerade, because that was part of their deal, like, because they just rolled over and said, yeah, okay, and they paid it. And I think a lot of that's what causes me, like, the name, like, they don't want to deal with the name, because then they brought me back for an anniversary, a Raw or something, and they called me Gangrel in it. The next day, they were trying to sue for $5 million, but White Wolf had sold to somebody else, and they were trying to sue. But when that went to court, the judge just said, if I see this case in here, he didn't want to see it again because it was just ridiculous what they were trying to do because they had already sold and different things. He goes, the guy wrestling is Gangrel. So when that happened, I go, wait a minute. So if I'm Gangrel, so I just had a guy who kept watching the trademarks on and stuff, so they never re-registered it or anything. So he swooped through, paid whatever it was, the $1,500, probably no more than $3,000 total. Everything, whatever you had to do to jump through, get all the things and advertise and that. Nobody got it, so I ended up with the trademark and the register now and everything. So I could do beer, wine, sporting clothes, apparels. I think the only thing I can't do is jewelry. I think White Wolf still has something on the jewelry, but I could do anything you pretty much think of. I could do with the name and stuff like that.
And then you're Gangrel on the main roster, but then they put you with Edge and Christian. They make the Brood. What was the idea behind them putting Edge and Christian with you?
Well, they did first. You rewind back to Edge and that feud. They didn't know what to do with him, so I think that was the reason they came up with me, like Vince Russo, because they were trying to figure out. They tried a bunch of different characters, or talked to him about a bunch of characters, and I think one of them they actually, if you remember Hiding Right, we read poems, we stood on top of the thing. I think they wanted him to do that, but Edge was smart enough that, like, when he did the promo stuff, he threw those paper away and did what he wanted. He was smart enough to tell them, no, I don't see myself doing that, which I wish I would have had that kind of confidence to say that, but he did that, so they didn't know what to do, so they just made him this mysterious guy that was watching me when I wrestled, and then I started watching him, and then we had this thing, and who knows if we're brothers, and we start fighting. And then, they can only go so far, and then what do you do with these characters? And I kept pitching to him that I was a big Freebirds fan. I like the Freebirds and stuff like that, and I liked the movie The Lost Boys, and I was like, can we just be like the wrestling vampires, like the Freebirds, like have this group and whatnot? And then they agreed and came up with the Brood, because I said, there's a group of us. We could, like I said earlier about vampires, I said, we could lose every night, but if we're really cool, nobody's going to care, right? And then that's what sold them, so then they did the Brood thing. And they never explained it,